Hello ladies and gentlemen, today I am talking about Bohemian Rhapsody. This is directed by Bryan Singer and stars Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury, and is the story of Freddie Mercury's life when he meets the band members of Queen, leading up to a specific point in their careers, and talking about all these in-between stuff that go on in their personal relationships and in Freddie's personal relationships. It's a quick summary, there's a lot that goes on, and I'll talk about a little bit with that. But the first thing I want to talk about is actually my reaction after seeing this film. I saw this movie with my family, my close family, my mom, my dad, and my brothers. And we all had very different reactions to it. My mom really loved it. My dad, my brothers, they really enjoyed the film. There were certain things that they found were they wanted more of, but they still really enjoyed it. I wasn't a big fan of this movie. This movie spans about 15 or so years of the lives of Freddie Mercury and the band members, and I found the biggest takeaway that I had with this movie was I felt there was so much that we just witnessed, but we had taken away so little. If somebody asks me, well, what did you think of the movie? I'd say, well, I witnessed this. I saw this, but I didn't necessarily feel anything during it. There's a lot that goes on, but it's more in one ear and out the other when it comes to just storytelling and how it tells its story. And the biggest issue that I had with this, and why I think it was such an issue for me, was because the focus of the movie isn't 100% clear. I don't know what we're supposed to be focusing on exactly, because there's a lot of elements thrown in. And I understand, you're doing a biopic about Queen, and there's a whole lot of crazy stuff going on with the band itself, and you have to talk about that in the course of almost 2 decades, and you're cramming that into a 2-hour and 15-minute movie. I understand. That's a difficult thing to do. However, it can be done if you focus on the right parts of it. This movie wants to tell the story of Freddie Mercury. This movie wants to tell the story of Queen. This movie wants to tell the story of how Queen evolves. This movie wants to tell the story of Freddie Mercury's personal, private, and celebrity lifestyle. It also wants to tell the story of the band's struggles. Without giving away too much, there's the major events in the band's career. And walking away, I just kind of realized it all just breezed by me. There was so much in this movie that I just felt was a flash. There wasn't any time devoted to it, and there was no reason for me to care about some of the things that were going on. When it comes to Freddie's personal relationships, romantic relationships, I didn't care. I liked Freddie Mercury. I think Rami Malek does a good job just playing Freddie Mercury for the most part. He does a good job at it. But I didn't feel as if he was really in the role. I felt there was some kind of restriction. There was some kind of wall that was kind of like getting... Like he was approaching the line, but he wasn't crossing it, and he wasn't fully immersed in this performance. As with some of the other performances, I felt like they were just... They didn't feel like real people. They felt as if they were actors trying to recapture these characters. And it was... You know, as I was walking away, I just kind of felt like I didn't attach myself to any of that. And that's a personal gripe. The real technical issue I had with this movie was the fact that it was so jumpy and so sporadic. We never really had time to understand the gravity of the stakes involved in every single either performance or with every tour or with every album release. It just seemed like the events were occurring with no real restraint other than the cliched restraint that we usually see in band biopics. That was really it. I mean, that's a big gripe, though, and for me it was what was causing me to not feel attached to this film. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, when am I going to care? The thing that did make me care, though, in terms of where I also think the movie's focus should have been, is Freddie Mercury and his relationship with his bandmates. I don't know their names, the actual members of Queen, or the actors who played them, but they were at their best when they were together, when they were in the situations where they're talking with producers and record company executives and trying to find their sound, trying to find their art. Those were the moments where it was most interesting, and where I gave more of myself to the story, where I was just there and I felt there was something being lost, being gained, being discovered. While I was watching it, I was just kind of like, okay, you know what? This is just going to be a renting movie. You don't have to worry about seeing it in theaters. I don't see why people are connecting with it so much. I was not understanding why people loved it until the final 20 minutes. Those last few minutes of the movie gave me a feeling of, wow. Like, really, wow. That was the moment where I realized Rami Malek dropped in and became Freddie Mercury. He became this icon. It wasn't just him doing, either trying to do an impression or him just trying to live up to the name. He was there with the band. The actors for the band were there. It felt alive. It felt powerful and inspiring. The filmmaking, the editing, the cinematography, all of those elements really hit their mark in that ending. There were a few good moments before during the film when it came to edits and when it came to what was being discussed on film, but they were simple, they were easy, there wasn't much behind it other than just, what we've seen a billion times before in other band biopics. Jokes that we kind of, ironic jokes like that we understand, like when somebody says, oh, this song is never going to be a hit, even though it clearly is going to be a hit because we know, and we laugh because we know it, but, that joke only goes so far. There is one moment in this ending, it's very quick, but I laughed harder than I laughed at any of the other ironic jokes that were being played before, because it was so specific and so it was just perfect. It was a perfect moment, and this entire ending was worth seeing it. There is a desire to tell this story, and it was a difficult story to tell because there's so many difficult elements to it, so many gears and devices going on. So it was difficult to tell, and I think they could have done a better job at trying to put their focus on something. Especially on trying to really flesh out the band. What I think, in terms of how you should see it, is, for me, it's a rent, and you don't really need to see it again. I wouldn't advise putting this in your collection, but I wouldn't say no to seeing it in theaters. That ending is worth it, and that ending deserves to be seen on the big screen. Thank you all so much for watching my review of Bohemian Rhapsody. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with the public, all that fun stuff. And as always, take care.